What up, Hoof listeners? Welcome into this beautiful Thursday evening as we kick off the NFL season. We have football, ladies and gentlemen, and I actually dressed for the
Yes.
occasion. I was thinking my Josh Allen, Wyoming jersey was going to flash, and then I see Anthony come into the
That's
screen,
right.
and I see the suit, and I'm like, oh my God,
Let's
man.
go.
Always trying to one-up me all the time.
I promised people that the suit would be back, and here it is, ladies and gentlemen, in its glory. I will be wearing it on game day as well, but of course I had to wear it for kickoff night of the NFL tonight. It's football is here, right? Are you ready for some football picks here on the Hoof Podcast? I guess, right? That's what we're doing tonight. But
Yes.
I mean, it's awesome, man. I'm pumped that there's real football going on. I'm excited that we have a game tonight. Then we have a game tomorrow, Saturday. Okay, we can
Yeah.
watch some college football.
Friday game,
And
a
then
little bit
Sunday.
weird. Like, NFL, I need some time to myself. Obviously it's week one. We'll watch it. It's exciting. I really don't
That's
want
what I
Friday
mean.
games, though, moving forward.
Not
You know what I
not
mean?
every Friday. I think for kickoff weekend, it's nice because you're like finally hyped it's here, and you
Mhm.
are so looking forward to Sunday that you just want it to be Sunday. So it helps pass the time a little bit, I think.
Right.
But yeah. I mean,
But,
I don't
I
want
always
every
think
Friday.
I think we talked about this a little bit before, but, like, if you're a Green Bay season ticket holder, you live in Green Bay, modest life, you could do well in Green Bay. It's a nice area and everything, but small town, very far north. You haven't had football all year, and now, it's in Brazil.
Right.
So it's like,
That
for me,
sucks.
that's
They
just
took a home game away from you.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I don't know. This seems weird to me, and Brazil just seems awkward too, right?
Right.
You
And that
see
whole
some of the clips of the
situation.
players
Yes,
walking out to
yeah.
the field,
And they
just kind
gotta
of awkward.
like go in an armored car to the field basically because
Right?
it's
Yeah.
dangerous. And they're
Right.
not supposed to be wearing green, and there's two green teams. I mean, it's all complicated and crazy, but the NFL does what it wants, and it wants more viewers in other countries. So that's how they're doing it, expanding to people who otherwise don't know what the NFL is, probably. But
Right.
hey,
Hey.
it's all about the money.
Yep. Keep it rolling in. What's going on, Sandra? What's up, Brett? We got John Robert. Rain in KC so far, FYI.
I like it. Yeah.
Ooh. I may favor Baltimore that way.
Man, my favor the under, I'd say, but yeah, we're gonna make our picks here soon for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a game that kicks off here 8:20. So what we got? Less than an hour. Let's start it off. All right. Baltimore at Kansas City. Baltimore +3 going into Kansas City. Now, I know people think, oh, Kansas City's got this one, right? It's home. They beat them last time. But that game was very, very close. That championship game in the AFC. If Zay Flowers doesn't drop the ball 1 yard before the end zone, it's probably a different outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These two teams have historically over the last few years battled each other close, right? It's been tough matchups where they're both good teams, high scoring affairs, right? One team is usually, offensively electric, and both of these teams have that ability, which is exciting for opening football night because we know both of these teams can score on any play at any time. And the kicker here is both have good defenses, right? That's what we're not used to, is a matchup where it's not just offense versus defense or this defense versus defense. Both of these teams have really good offenses and really good defenses. Both of these teams are expected to be in the playoffs and contention in the AFC. So that makes for a super exciting opening night. Usually the Super Bowl champion gets some favoritism for this game, but I guess the NFL went with sticker value of viewership, even though it's going to be one of the most watched games because it's the only game on and it's the first game on. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a fun game, and I'm looking forward to watching.
Yeah, and it's it's fun to see like the offseason additions on the field, right? That's kind of one of the exciting things about week one and the kickoff game in general, right? Like Xavier Worthy, going to be fun to watch, right? Bill's handed them Xavier Worthy, so we hope he's not good, but like we'll find out tonight. Derrick Henry with the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, what's that look like? If you're the defense, what do? You stack the box to stop Derrick Henry and Lamar runs on the outside. I mean, that just feels like that's a nightmare to defend, outside looking in. So, I mean, that new offense is exciting for Baltimore. So I'm really curious to see what that looks like. We might not get too much week one, like as far as strategy and, play calls, but these games count. So, I mean, they'll be throwing it all out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, this is real season now, so there's no holding back anything. And both teams dynamic in different ways in multiple facets, right? Kansas City last year ran the ball very effectively with Pacheco and others, right? Baltimore now bringing in Derrick Henry to go with Lamar, who always has good rushing game. That's going to be exciting to see on their side and what they're able to do against a really good Kansas City defense. One of the factors I'm definitely taking into consideration with this game is Kansas City, for the most part, is bringing a lot of their guys back. They do have new pieces. Hollywood Brown, a new piece for them, but he's out for this game, right, with the injury. So we're not going to see him. Xavier Worthy might get more play than they originally planned for in this game. But on the other side, Baltimore bringing in multiple pieces on both sides of the ball. Offensive line, right, reshuffled. They lost coaches. Because whenever you have a head coach going, or a defensive coordinator in their case, going on to be a head coach, then you've got to worry about, all the coaches he took with him and everything. So they've got some turnover there, which was always interesting, especially to start the season. Those guys are just gelling in real game action now. And Harbaugh, obviously, he controls the ship there. It's fairly tight ship there. So I'm not too worried about that, but still very interesting to see. Mainly it's that offensive line of Baltimore, that new offensive line. Can they hold up for Derrick Henry and Lamar against a very good Kansas City defense? And then, flip that in reverse and say Kansas City's pass rush, are they going to be over pursuing and allow the run game to take over for Baltimore? It's a interesting matchup. I think it's going to be a close game, but it's weighing these different factors against each other in week one, which, I always say this every year, but week one is not the story of the season, right? We think we know how these games are going to go. And then you see week one and you're like, oh, wow, that didn't go how we expected. These teams aren't who we thought they were. Then week 2, 3, and 4 happen, and all of a sudden that's not the same either. So week one is usually not the end all be all. Some people say week one is a liar. I wouldn't go that far, because some things you see in week one do hold up throughout the season in terms of good and bad teams and players that stand out or whatever. But at least,
yeah, that's a good point. Like Detroit beating Kansas City last year in the kickoff game, and everyone's like, "Oh, are they actually this good?" And the answer was yes. Yeah, they were a good team last year, right? They're good enough to beat Kansas City. And I know it's early in the season. You don't really, Kansas City really heats up late in the year. But again, that was surprising last year. So when you say week one games do count, and it does show you kind of who the teams are, I think that's a good example.
Right, but the loser of this game doesn't mean, they're going to be a terrible team this year, right? That's the big takeaway.
As much as we want Baltimore to stomp Kansas City and make Kansas City a bad team, it's just not the case, like you said. But
look at that.
Yeah.
Raphael. Man.
Hi, guys. Huge Bills fan writing from Brazil. I will attend the game tomorrow in full Bills gear. It's awesome to have an NFL game down here. Go Bills.
Oh, that's so exciting. I'm glad you get to attend, and I'm glad you're repping your Bills gear. And trust me, we will find you. Somebody in Bills Mafia is going to find you in that crowd and circle and be like, Bills Mafia is represented. So that's awesome that you're going to be wearing your Bills gear, and awesome that you get to go to an NFL football game, which, quite honestly, we're not talking about that game yet. It's the next one on the slate, but it's going to be an exciting game too, right? They have some good matchups here to start the season of contending teams in both divisions, both conferences. So yeah, that's definitely a fun one. Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, definitely. How about we make our pick so we can we have a full slate. We're going to spend a little extra time on the Bills game, but we got a lot to get to. All right. What do you think? Baltimore +3 at Kansas City. Who are you taking?
I've heard a lot of people jumping on Kansas City. Oh yeah, Kansas City. Almost everybody I know is picking Kansas City in this game. I'm taking Baltimore with the points. Baltimore +3. I expect it to be a fairly close game. My score prediction was 23-20 at the time. Baltimore was +3.5 when I made that pick initially. So I'll take the half-point edge there. But even close, I'm still going to take Baltimore with the +3. However, I do think Kansas City wins the game, right? They find a way to win. That's just what they do. They're playing, as the Super Bowl reigning champions. I just think there's an edge there that Kansas City, gives Kansas City the advantage. And remember, if you haven't watched our prediction episode, go back last week. We made our predictions for the season. Baltimore has a very tough schedule this year. I do think they're a good team that can contend. However, I have them not making the playoffs, and I think this might be that first step that shows you, hey, even though they're a good team and they can compete well, if they lose these really close matchups, they're going to be on the back end of it and not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Baltimore. I think they win by at least a touchdown.
Ooh,
I
they
just
win.
think, yeah, I like Baltimore. I think they're the most balanced team next to the Philadelphia Eagles in the entire league. And I think, there's continuity there, right? With Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. Expect to see a jump from them. I mean, Bateman, we'll see what we get, but I mean, you expect that from them, right?
Yeah.
I think Mark Andrews back healthy. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He's
And
playing. Yep.
yeah, then Derrick Henry, Lamar. That's just going to be, fun to watch. Other matchup: Nate Wiggins, probably the fastest cornerback in the draft. He can match up well with some of these fast receivers they have, and Xavier Worthy.
Yeah,
Rashee
that's
Rice
true.
playing in this game too, by the way.
Yes, right. Not suspended yet because the
Yeah.
NFL needs to gather more information. So
Right.
he's playing, unfortunately. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, we'll see how that goes as well. I think he could end up being a factor in this game as well. Again, with Marquise Brown out, somebody's going to get the ball for Kansas City passing it. We know Kelsey, right? We know Kelsey's going to be there. And yeah, they do like to use the 2 tight end formations, but I think Rice and Xavier Worthy are both going to see targets in this game, multiple targets. So that's going to be good. And we'll see how they do with those opportunities before Hollywood Brown comes back.
But yeah, I like Baltimore in this one. All right, next game, Friday Night Football, Green Bay at Philadelphia. Green Bay +2 at Philadelphia in Brazil.
Yeah, another game that is going international here. So I think this is an interesting matchup to start the season because most people are really high on both of these teams in the NFC. I have said before that to me, the Eagles are all in this year, right? They signed as many people as they could. And next year they're looking at a cap situation where they're going to have to make some decisions and maybe, move on from some guys. But right now, the Eagles have one of the most loaded rosters in the NFL. And the last time we saw the Eagles, they were tripping over their own 2 feet and fell on their face, right? And Green Bay is this team that, again, most are expecting to be in contention in the NFC, who is the rising stars, right? You got Jordan Love, who got the big contract now. And, this team that came in last season with moderate expectations and did pretty well. And now this season is kind of being picked by everybody. But I still think they have something to prove. I mean, they've got the guys there. They've got a good young core team, but I haven't seen that they can contend with top rosters, especially in their own conference, like Seattle or 49ers or the Lions, etc. So give me I really like the Eagles in this game. I think that just their experience as a team together, offensively, defensively, they have a lot to offer. I think they're going to be more electric at scoring, which again is almost backwards to what I'm hearing from most people. They think that about Green Bay, but I'm really on that train for the Eagles here. So I like them as the favorite in this game on the international game. So not really a home field advantage, but give me Philly -2. I think they win the game by at least 6.
Yeah, I like Philly. I mean, like I said, they're my Super Bowl pick this year. Most balanced team in football next to Baltimore. And this game really comes down to, for me, Saquon Barkley versus Josh Jacobs, right? I think Green Bay adding Josh Jacobs really is going to help them tremendously, right? And their receiving core for Green Bay, not so young anymore. But I feel like Matt LaFleur with the play calling and what Josh Jacobs can do, that's going to be really tough to stop. And especially if Jordan Love is the Jordan Love we think he is, what we saw last year, can make some magic happen, crazy plays here and there. I mean, a guy like Josh Jacobs opens the field up, and I think that favors Jordan Love. The only difference for me, I think I just trust Philadelphia's defensive line to limit the run game over Green Bay's defense, right?
Agreed.
I feel like they're absolutely stacked on defense, and that's gonna show up in this game, and it's gonna be tough sledding for Green Bay. Whereas I think, Philadelphia will really get Saquon Barkley rolling. I mean, again,
and their
weapons,
AJ
Brown,
pass catchers,
just Jahan Dotson's their fourth receiver. I mean, they're just deep on offense, so that's going to be challenging for Green Bay. All right, the game we've all been waiting for, the Arizona Cardinals at the Buffalo Bills, 1:00 on Sunday. How we feeling, right? It's just time to put this team to the test. We've talked about this Bills roster so much this offseason, from the receivers to the cornerbacks. The secondary the safeties in particular, but the secondary was our conversation this week through text. With Rapp and Damar Hamlin trotting out there, it kind of feels like a second team defense.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up to start this discussion, didn't you? We're playing the Arizona Cardinals, Eric, right? This isn't a hell on fire, oh my God, we're going to be dumpster team, that you and Sterling seem to be making it out to be, right? And I'm like, okay.
Well, I just want to see it. That's it. Yeah, are they improved? Probably, right? Taylor Rapp's been kind of starting the whole offseason. Damar Hamlin's been filling in, getting a lot of reps in the training camp. I think that will show up. They'll show up as improved players. But again, you got to see that. And we get our opportunity this weekend, right? So,
yes, exactly. But this is, it's time to, as you would say, put up or shut up, right? This is the real season is here. The Cardinals, although they have been, not meeting expectations over the last few years, they've had injuries and so forth. Their roster is better, much, much improved, and they're a real team in the NFL that the Bills now have to beat. The Bills are playing at home, huge advantage, right? The Bills' offense has been getting knocked around and criticized, and no Stephon Diggs and this. And who's been pounding the table since January? Me, saying this team is going to be just as good. And then they made the Curtis Samuel signing, my favorite signing of the offseason. Another guy who I'm hearing other Bills podcasts and other Bills platforms not give enough credit to. Curtis Samuel is going to be a dynamic weapon on this offense. Curtis Samuel opens things up on this offense for other guys on this offense. So, I mean, people aren't giving him enough credit. That signing was, again, one tier above where I thought the Bills would go. Yes, he's been injured in the preseason. They let him rest. They knew he was going to be ready for week 1. Sean McDermott said that from the onset of this injury, that he was likely going to be ready for week 1. And now he's going to go out there and he's going to be a huge impact on this team right away. You're going to see him get carries. You're going to see him line up in the backfield or, be the X receiver and be the, slot receiver. I think that makes a huge difference for confusing defenses, especially in an opportunity like this against a Cardinals team whose obvious weakness is their defense, right? Like their defense, although they have some good pieces here and there, not exactly one of the, top 10 contending rosters in the NFL, if you will, right? There's a lot of holes there to exploit, and I think the Bills will do so. So from an offensive standpoint alone, I am sick of the criticism from internal and external, right? Most of the external has surrounded around losing Diggs and Josh Allen, at least in terms of the offense, right? The overrated. And, we could start with that right there. What I want to happen in this game is when Josh Allen has 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, the home crowd in Buffalo should start chanting, overrated, overrated, just to shove it in the faces of the NFL and all those players who voted Josh Allen as the most overrated player, because I think this is his most likely season to win MVP, because they can't take it away from him now. All they've done is criticize him. All these voters who vote on this, the media people, all they've done is criticize. He's lost all his weapons. He doesn't have anything going on now. He's going to be weaker because Diggs isn't there. Well, now when he does well, just as well as he has before, they have nothing to criticize him on. And I love these weapons on offense. Again, you and Sterling were talking about Mac Hollins, right? Oh, we can't get anywhere with Mac Hollins. Who cares? Mac Hollins is just another guy on this team. I'm not worried about Mac Hollins getting many snaps and, oh, no, he's the starter because he's out there. We know who these starters are. We know who the identity of this team is. And as much as I like the upside of a guy like Mac Hollins and the leadership of a guy like Mac Hollins and the dynamic personality of a player like that, you still have to look at what this team is, okay? Dalton Kincaid, right? Khalil Shakir, Dawson Knox, and the rest of the crew are going to be there catching passes, all right? Mac Hollins is just another name added to the list. You and I talked early in the offseason about how this wide receiver core could be one of the most dynamic Josh has ever had because he can get it to any of those guys, right? And we haven't even talked about Coleman, who I think is going to have limited opportunities in this game.
I'd
So
probably
that's
see
why I
some
didn't
red
mention
zone, right? Like him
Yeah,
in the red zone, use the
exactly.
body.
They've tried to get
Saw
him
that a little bit
involved.
in the preseason, right? Kind of like what you saw there. James Cook, I think James Cook has a great day versus the Arizona defense. It's been the passing game and running game, and I'm excited to see Ray Davis. How many touches
Yeah.
will Ray Davis get? Right, get different style
Well,
running back, maybe change the pace a little bit. That worked well with Ty Johnson last year, so I think if you're calling plays, I think Ray Davis is that guy.
yeah, I mean, we'll see, right? Because right now he's technically listed as the third running back behind Ty Johnson, right?
Right.
So the team still values what Ty Johnson can do, rightfully so. He proved himself last year when given the opportunity in a lot of situations. But I certainly Ray Davis is one of those rising guys. It's just a matter of him being a rookie. When's he going to come in, and what
Right.
opportunities? I think it's similar to the Coleman situation. They'll
Yeah. So
bring him
week one, you
in
might
certain
not see him as
situations. Right.
much. Right.
It's
Ty
going to be
Johnson could
spot.
maintain that role.
Correct.
Yeah, I
Correct.
could
For
see
the
that.
first few weeks, at least, I think. You're going to work him in, see what he does. Obviously, if he makes the most of his opportunities, he's only going to gain, right? He's only going to get more and more opportunity if he really capitalizes on when he's out there. So, I mean, I'm not expecting too much out of Ray Davis initially, but certainly could make a splash play here and there.
Yeah, so when you look at Arizona, what are you worried about? Obviously, Marvin Harrison, we all think is going to be a great player. Does that happen week one?
No.
Likely no. Right.
No.
Zay Jones,
Just
with the suspension, we're all aware of that. What are you looking at? I mean, Kyler Murray, we know he can make plays. Right. We know that this Bills defense without Matt Milano, little bit inexperienced, right? They had Dorian Williams 1 year under his belt. Do you expect to see a jump there in year two? I think you do. Another year in the system, another off season in the system. I think that helps him. Are you worried at all about Arizona on offense in particular?
I would say what I'm worried about is Kyler Murray's running ability, right? He's dynamic there. If he gets out of the pocket, he can still make a play. We've seen this before with quarterbacks, right? But they also have when you tie that to a good run game, which I think they have the experience back in Connor, and they have a young back in Trey Benson who got a lot of hype coming in, right? A good guy who could eventually take over that starting role. So they have two dynamic backs. That's going to keep them fresh, much like we were just saying about Buffalo, and Kyler Murray's running ability. That's what concerns me most, because I think that's where they could take advantage of the Bills, right? Kyler Murray can roll out, look like he's getting a run, get somebody to bite on defense, and then pass it to an open guy with that opportunity. Or he could just take off and run and continue to do that, and then they hand off the ball up the middle, and they're worried about the quarterback run, etc. So the focus for me is on the run game. I think they will pass. I mean, like you said, we have a young, dynamic, awesome player in Marvin Harrison Jr., who, he's going to make a catch at least in this game, and it's going to be probably a nice catch. But I'm not as worried about that. I think because the Bills' cornerback situation is one that I trust. I trust the cornerbacks. The safeties, yeah, we've talked about that. They are who they are. I'm not worried about the safeties, but I'm not excited about it either. The cornerbacks certainly bring me a level of excitement. You got Rasul Douglas, you got Christian Benford, two guys in Rasul, the veteran who's established, Christian Benford, one of the biggest rising stars in the NFL at the position. Both can take away the ball. Both can cover their guys very good in this defense. Taron Johnson's going to take away the middle, obviously. And you've got Elam coming in, who I know you have questions about, but we don't know how much he's going to play. So I'm not
we
even
all have questions about Elam.
I'm not even, well, certainly what he can do in real game action again, but I'm not going to be worried about that until I see him on the field, because those first two should be locking down most of that time, right? And yeah, I think so. The passing game, again, will they be able to pass? Yes, but I'm more focused on that run game, and that is where the area of concern for me is, although that's limited too, because we do have a healthy defensive interior line, and we know that they're going to be ready for Kyler Murray and game planning for him to run around and get loose.
Yeah, it's a good test for, Von Miller.
Mm-hmm.
I think you see him. I mean, last year, would he be able to catch Kyler Murray? Questionable, right? But I think, we'll find out early if Von's close to the old Von, right? Something to pay attention to. You mentioned Kyler Murray running as a threat. From Buffalo Bills PR, since the start of the 2019 season, Josh Allen and Kyler Murray ranked second and third, respectively, in rushing yards by a quarterback. Allen has 2,980. Murray has 2,448 yards. They also ranked first and third in rushing touchdowns by a quarterback during that time. Allen, 45 rushing touchdowns since 2019. Murray, 26. So I think we did actually a long time ago, if you remember this, one of the early Hoof shows, we did quarterback rankings.
That's right.
This is one of your famous clips of all time.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think someone from Cover One mentioned Kyler Murray. They put Kyler Murray over Josh Allen.
Yes, at the time.
2019. And you saw flashes from Kyler Murray at the time.
Of course.
Josh was still trying to figure it out, but you lost your mind.
I did. I did. It's like, Kyler freaking Murray? Are you kidding me? Kyler Murray better than Josh Allen? And what did I say? I said, come back to me in 5 years. Guess what? It's
right.
been 5 years. And nobody in the world thinks Kyler Murray is better than Josh Allen. Oh, so that rant was correct, 100% spot on, saying what? And at the time, it wasn't like I was saying Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the league. No, I was saying you can't put a guy with 1 year experience who hasn't shown much over a guy who's shown growth and prosperity, right? So yeah, I mean that was nuts to me. And
that was
again,
funny that day.
Fun. And it's been fun. This matchup of quarterbacks, it's just fun, right? And Kyler Murray has gotten the best of Buffalo before, and I'm sure they're going to show that clip 3 times on Sunday. I'm going to be angry every time they show it.
Well, that play too, it's one of Josh Allen's greatest moments, driving the team down the field, throwing the game-winning touchdown to Stephon Diggs. I mean,
and it gets taken away by a stupid play. Yeah,
that's happened a lot to Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, final score prediction and make your pick.
So I truly believe that the weakness here is the Cardinals defense, right? And the Bills are going to score at will on this Cardinals defense. However, it's a different Bills approach, right? We've talked about this through the offseason. I think it's going to be more of a ball control, long drives, scoring drives, right? That's what it's all about for this Bills team. So I don't think the Bills are going to put up a 50 burger, although I think they're capable of it. I think a reasonable expectation is more like 31, right? 31-17, let's say, right? And I think that is a good score. Obviously, that means I'm taking Buffalo -6.5, a game at home, opening the year. You have to have this one for sure against an inferior opponent, at least defensively. So give me the Bills 31-17.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. And I'm really curious to see how Arizona's defense attacks this new Bills offense, right? I think the Bills got a lot of, 2 safeties deep. So they built their roster around big bodies who could play underneath, find holes in the zone. You have a receiving running back, Kincaid is such a mismatch for linebackers. So will they challenge the Bills to throw it deep? I think that's something I'm going to pay attention to. But I think the Bills, like you said, ball control. I don't think it's going to be a huge through the air type day. I think they'll surprise a lot of people, run the ball a lot. So I'm going 28-17 Bills at home. And Bills got a tough schedule coming up. So I think this game's important to get it knocked out.
So I think Josh Allen could have 4 touchdowns in this game, maybe 1 rushing and 3 passing. So I think that's where I'm at with this. And I think Curtis Samuel gets the first touchdown for the Bills, which will be
bold prediction.
Again, that's not what most people are thinking, but I think you're underrating the impact this guy is going to have on the season. And I'm looking forward to seeing it play out.
Okay, my first touchdown, Dawson Knox.
Ooh, that's a good one.
There's a lot of attention on Samuel. Be a lot of attention on Kincaid.
Yeah. Especially if they get in the red zone. Yeah. That's going to be.
I like Knox in this scenario. All right. So that's that game. Let's move on to the next one. Here we go. The New England Patriots at the Cincinnati Bengals. New England -8.5 at Cincinnati. Jacoby Brissett gets the start here, right? Not Drake May. And is the return of Joe Burrow, which I think is really exciting. Another thing, we haven't seen Jamar Chase get paid yet, right? Did I miss that?
No, he's still. So apparently he dressed for practice today. That was the report that I read. He dressed for practice today. How much he did, I don't know, but he was there and he dressed. So maybe there's conversations going on, or maybe he's just going to show up and say, pay me or I'm out of here, right? So I think
well, that's a big difference in the game for sure.
But I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. New England is one of the worst teams in the NFL, roster-wise, just straight up, right? So defensively, are they going to be able to stand with the likes of a Bengals team even without a Jamar Chase? I
Right.
think the
And
Bengals do
Jamar
just
Chase
fine.
really moves the needle, but there is a lot to like about Cincinnati. I mean, but Joe Mixon's not there. Usually you see Cincinnati rely on their running
Right.
game,
But they
bring
have
balance to the
the young
offense
running
'cause
back in Brown. They had brought in Zach Moss, who had a good
right.
year last year. So, I mean, they have still dynamic backs. I think they actually got better because,
Mm.
they
Joe
ran
Mixon's good.
Mixon. He is, but they ran him into the ground, right? Like, I think they were just like, "Hey, it's time to move on, and we're ready for that." Not
Yeah.
that Mixon isn't gonna have, still productive, but, again, what's he got left? And they decided to go with the young back in Brown and brought in Zach Moss to be, a stable guy who's at least gotten it done at the NFL level and had his best year last year with Indy. So, I mean, I think they're going to be able to still be balanced and still pass the ball. And Joe Burrow's going to be back with something to prove. And even though New England is, getting 8.5 points, I think Cincinnati makes a statement here. And we didn't even talk about the defense, right? Cincy has a good defense. I wouldn't call it elite, but it's very good. And they're playing a New England offense that is just getting started. We'll say a lot of new faces over there, a lot going on.
Right.
So
Right.
they're going to back them into a corner early and then force them to make mistakes on offense. So I like Cincy's defense this week as well, and I think they dominate this game. And I'm taking Cincy to win by at least 10 points or more.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This is one of those games. Don't overthink it. Right. It's Joe Burrow versus Jacoby Brissett. Right. There's a lot of young receivers for the Patriots, and the Bengals receivers are experienced guys
Right.
like T. Higgins. Right.
Even if Jamar Chase doesn't play. Now that
Right.
might affect this line, but it's,
Sure.
which would be great because it'd be in my favor. But
Mhm.
Either way, I'm still taking
Yeah, but
Cincinnati.
Joe is chomping at the bit to come back out and show everybody he's still the same player, right?
Oh,
I think when you
absolutely.
get injured like that and you're out for such a long time, you think about it every day,
Yes.
right? And you're
Yes.
working hard to get back. So I think Joe Burrow has a good game,
And
and
I've
yeah,
been saying from a
I'll take
fantasy perspective,
Cincy.
I've picked up Joe Burrow a lot because they have a pretty soft schedule for the first 8 games of the year. And I think that's going to pay off in terms of fantasy production for the likes of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, etc. Right. So I'm high on those guys in fantasy this year. I drafted 9 times, 9 leagues. Those are all done. So now I can talk about my strategy openly.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely one that I made. I have a lot of T. Higgins, Jamar Chase in different leagues.
hmm Yeah, I got Jamar Chase, but I don't know. I always go for a running quarterback. Burrow doesn't do that.
Fair enough.
You probably get Burrow at a discount though.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
way
next one
later,
here.
way later.
Yeah. Minnesota Vikings at the New York Giants. Minnesota -1.5 at New York. This game's a tough one, right? They're kind of feels like two disasters right now.
Yes.
Um, it's Sam Darnold versus Daniel Jones. That's an interesting storyline. And then, Malik Neighbors, I think, is a good storyline.
Yes, right.
Is he,
His debut, obviously
debut?
Minnesota
Yep.
with their weapons on at wide receiver and bringing in a new running back, right? From a rival team nonetheless.
Right.
So a lot to look
Two
at
good
here.
play callers from,
Yeah,
from the head coach perspective.
right. So
Brian Daboll, Kevin O'Connell.
despite the fact that, again, this is the NFL, right? This is week one. These teams both have a fresh slate. One of them's coming out 1-0, despite the fact that most people are writing them off as last place teams. And so I really think this matchup matters to both teams in terms of the direction their season is going to go. And therefore, that is why I'm actually picking the Giants to win this game. I think we've talked about this the offseason. The Giants, in terms of their odds to make the playoffs, the best bet of the offseason in my mind, because they have a chance and their odds are like plus 400 or something. So, that was a bet that I really liked this season. And Minnesota, on the other hand, I have them finishing last in their division, and they have Sam Darnold at quarterback right now. At least in terms of what we know of Sam Darnold, expectations are low there, and they have to prove us wrong. Otherwise, even with these dynamic wide receivers that they have, so I think Daniel Jones is primed for a big return here, right? He's going to show why they stuck with him. The run game, yes, he makes mistakes with the passes, but he's still dynamic out there. And now with Malik Neighbors and, a better the best wide receiving core he's had to work with, and the best wide receiver he's had to work with. I think you're going to see more out of him. Going under the radar, though, the Giants made moves on defense that I think are going to help them in this game, in the pass rush with their defensive backs. So I think that ultimately is the difference maker. I do think it's going to be a close game, but give me the Giants with the points, and I think they win the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be the Giants here, home field advantage. And Daniel Jones knows that it's his team now, right? Barkley gone. They're all in on Daniel. So he has to play well because he's also, I think with that responsibility, he's also on a short leash, right? People are tearing him up for the pick six he threw in the preseason. You just can't do that in this game. So I trust Daniel Jones over Sam Darnold in this game because he's at home, a lot to prove. Whereas Sam Darnold's like, it's not his job. He'll have it this year, but I mean, moving forward, it doesn't look like it. So give me Daniel Jones for this one. All right, next one, Tennessee Titans at the Chicago Bears. Tennessee plus 3.5 at Chicago. Caleb Williams makes his debut. Rome Odunze making his debut. Keenan Allen for Chicago. This, there's a lot to like about the Chicago offense.
Sure.
A lot to like about their defense as well. Really, it's the rookie quarterback. Will he be ready? Will he minimize mistakes? These are the type of questions that I think decide this game.
Yeah, and I think that during this season, we are going to see that team mature, Chicago, on offense, on defense. They're going to gel. They're going to get better. But to expect that out of the gate is really tough. So my expectations are tempered, right? I actually like Tennessee with the points here. I think Tennessee is more primed to succeed early, and especially getting a matchup like this against a team that still has to prove it. I do think the game will be close, but with Tennessee getting 3.5, I actually think they win the game, and I'll take them with the points. I might be a 20-21 type game or like something like that. So I do think Tennessee pulls it off. I like what Tennessee has to offer, both in adding a guy like Calvin Ridley. What's he going to be to Will Levis?
Good point.
You still have D-Hop there, although there's injuries happening and we don't quite know what's going on there. I just think that Tennessee is one of these underappreciated teams for where they are now. Not saying they're going to make a huge run this season, but certainly this week one, this is one of those matchups that I think people are overlooking.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And let's not forget about Tony Pollard. I mean, say what you want about Tony Pollard, but he's played running back at the highest level in the league, right? He's been in that top 5 conversation. So I think, he could help them. And Will Levis a year smarter. Do we see a jump? I think that helps them in this game in particular. Now, I wouldn't be completely shocked if Caleb Williams comes out and finds a way to win this because the stupid arm talent, right? And that can go either way in games, but it could go the positive way, and Chicago could win this game. But I'm picking Tennessee just because of the experience.
Right, exactly.
All right, Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. Carolina plus 4, traveling down to New Orleans. Divisional game, very important divisional game out the gate. And I don't think we've agreed on I think we've only disagreed on one game so far, and that's Baltimore, Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
I think all the other ones we've agreed. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, again, we don't know each other's picks before this. It's not like we review. So my pick here is actually going to be Carolina. I like Carolina coming into the season, again, a team that I think has just been written off because they were bad in the past, but I like that they are better on offense. They shored up the offensive line a little. They got pieces to complement Young at quarterback. And the Saints, to me, are right now the biggest dumpster fire in the NFL, other than maybe the Jets, because their roster, they just refuse to rebuild, and they're trying to continue to kick Cap down the road. And Derek Carr's your quarterback. When they first traded with him, it didn't make sense to me. Now, it's like, what's going on there? I don't know what expectations are in New Orleans. And, again, they have dynamic playmakers too. Alvin Kamara is still on that team, Chris Olave. But I think that Carolina with the points, especially, I'm definitely taking Carolina plus 4. And I think they come up with an upset early in the season here.
Yeah, I'm interested to see Bryce Young first, but also Xavier Legette. Another player the Bills are like, yeah, sure, you can take him. We'll wait. So again, how do they use him? Is he ready to play? I mean, that's all stuff that I like to pay attention to. But yeah, I kind of like your point about Carolina here. I'm kind of on the fence with this one, but I think I'm going to go New Orleans just because, again, experience, home field advantage, Derek Carr. I think getting the start. There was a lot of talk about Spencer Rattler,
Yeah,
in
right.
the offseason. So that I don't think Derek Carr's job's safe, but again, an average quarterback who can manage the game. That's really all you need to do. Let the playmakers make plays. And I just like New Orleans at home in this one. So we got a disagreement finally.
There you go.
All right, Pittsburgh at Atlanta. Pittsburgh plus
Oh.
3.5 at Atlanta. Russell Wilson wins the job for Pittsburgh, right?
Maybe. He's
We don't know
they
yet.
just came out today. Well, he was named the starter, but they said today that he tweaked something or whatever, and now there's a potential for him not to be available, which obviously would mean Fields would get the start. Either way,
that's fun though, because former team. That's a fun storyline.
Yeah. I mean, either way here, I just think that, the Atlanta team, in my mind, I picked them to be the NFC champion, right? So I've always been high on Kirk Cousins. People know this. I call him a top 10 quarterback, and people argue with me about it all the time. The guy is good enough to be a leader, to get it done with weapons, and that's exactly what this team needed since last year when I made this statement, right? I just think him throwing to guys like Kyle Pitts and Drake London is going to make this team even more dynamic. They have Bijan. The Steelers' defense is good, is always good, right? Is always good. But their offense is a joke in my mind. I've never been a believer in Najee Harris, a name who some people wanted the Bills to get, and I said absolutely not. And, now it's looking more like that was the right move. Now you're talking about a quarterback situation where I don't even care who's playing quarterback. I actually think Fields is the better option than Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson was named the starter. Now he might be hurt, so Fields might be playing. They haven't proven they can move the ball, right? And Atlanta is the opposite. They loaded up on offense now with Cousins, and over the last 2 years of drafting, their defense, they traded for Judon. They signed Simmons at safety. They've already had some playmakers there. I think they filled the holes they needed to on defense. Now they have pass rush. Now they have secondary. I just think their strengths are undeniable in the NFC, especially in a weak conference. But in this interdivisional game or inter-conference game, Atlanta has a huge advantage here. You can't count the Steelers out, but I think Atlanta makes a statement as we're here to play in this game one of their season.
Yeah, I'd like Atlanta as well, but that storyline of, if Justin Fields plays, I said he's going to his former team. He's actually going to his his hometown is what I meant to say.
That's
he played at Georgia, transferred to Ohio State, but from Georgia. So going home, I think that's a fun storyline. And I agree with you. I mean, Atlanta's just balanced, right? Across the board. AJ Terrell gets re-signed on defense. Bijan Robinson, I think,
dynamic,
at some point got to take over, right? So I think you see that. I think having a quarterback like Kirk Cousins who can manage the game effectively, I think is an advantage when you have a running game, and they certainly do. The Steelers, a lot of question marks. Russell Wilson plays, he really struggled in Denver, right? So what's that look like? I don't think anybody really knows, and I think it's going to take a little time for the new quarterback to get used to, running the offense, with these new players and who's your go-to, who can you trust on third down. All that stuff takes time. So I like Atlanta.
Nice.
All right, Florida matchup, Jaguars at Miami Dolphins. Jaguars plus 3.5 at Miami. How are we feeling about Miami? Because offense is going to be flashy, I would say. But they lost a lot of defensive players.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's their Achilles heel right now, especially early in the season where some of their guys are still working back, right? But their pass rush, although they loaded up kind of to shore up the position there, but with younger players. So there's holes to be had there on defense. We know what this Miami offense is, right? They have Waddle, they have Tyreek Hill. You and I could get the ball to those two guys, and Tua is better than people give him credit for. I'll say that much, at least maybe some of Bill's Mafia anyway. But I think Tua is better than people give him credit for with those weapons, with their dynamic run game. Okay, Mostert coming back. We know that he has that offense down, and he really is productive in it with one of the fastest guys in the game in A-Chain, however he's pronouncing it this year, that that combination is going to allow this offense to be explosive week in and week out. However, they do have holes on defense, and I think that offensive line is vulnerable, which makes this matchup particularly vulnerable because I think the Jaguars have one of the best defensive players in football in Joshua Hines, Allen, that he's going to be a factor in this game, right? And I think that could be impact, if he's able to get through and make plays. I think that ultimately has an impact on the final score of this game. And you and I, when we made our picks, I picked Jacksonville to win the division. I don't by any means think that there's some explosive going to win it all team. I thought they'd get the 1 seed last year just based on their schedule alone, and they did through 3/4 of the season, but blew it, obviously. And now this year, I think they have a lot to prove. Tough matchup for both these teams to start the season, right? Neither one of them wants to go 0-1, but I do think Jacksonville finds a way to beat Miami in this game and cover because of that defense. I just think their offense is going to be good enough. I'm not high on, ETN and those guys, but I think that their passing game is going to be dynamic. Obviously, with Christian Kirk, who was 1,000-yard receiver a couple of years ago, the go-to guy, he can score for them at any position in the field.
Or Brian Thomas Jr., right?
You bring in Brian Thomas Jr., my favorite player from the draft.
Yeah.
Definitely a player I'm going to watch in this game, as that slot receiver. And I just think, again, overall, production-wise and ability, sure, Miami can score fast and score quickly on you.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking is Miami's design, they're going to run up a lot the scoreboard. They might not play any defense, but really can Jacksonville beat themselves? Right? Let's assume that Miami could score on every single drive, which they have the capability to do that, in my opinion. I don't see that with Jacksonville. Right. So I think Jacksonville ends up beating themselves in this game. And I'll take Miami at home.
There you go. Okay. Well, we disagree again. And my counter to that would be I think I trust Jacksonville's defense to make a play that results in a score more than I would Miami's. So therefore, that's going to make up for that score versus scoring drive, right? And make a stop more than I trust Miami's.
Yeah, fair. I just feel like the play calling with Miami, everyone's worried about Tyreek Hill, but then there's so many other options for them. Stretching the field with the running backs, it's just so hard to defend. So I think they've probably, taken their offense to another level, and we'll see what that looks like. But that's just my gut feeling for Miami. All right, here we go. Dallas at Cleveland. This is a sneaky good game here.
Yeah.
Dallas plus 2.5 at Cleveland. A lot of question marks with Cleveland, right? Okay, Deshaun Watson, number one. Again, we're all waiting to see some glimpse of what Deshaun Watson was before he got his $250 million guaranteed. It's time to put up for him, right? Because really hasn't paid off for the Browns yet, but this feels like the year that it could happen. So for the Browns, that's number one. I think if he can play decent football, I think the Browns win this one by a lot.
Yeah, have they had a quarterback in 2 years, right? I mean, they trade for this guy and, he hasn't done much for them. But he's, again, you and I are on the same page there. He just has to be normal, right? Not, average. Average will get you there with this team, right? They bring in better weapons. They've got Jerry Jeudy there now, right?
Right.
They still got Cooper. So they have some guys they can get the ball to in the passing game, but really their strength has been their run game and their defense, right? So I trust their defense is good. Here's the difference, right? Cleveland's defense is truly good all the way around. Pass, run, balanced at stopping the other team, right? Dallas's defense is one of the most dynamic pass rushes in the NFL, without a doubt. But they struggle, to me, on the back end where they over pursue and then they leave themselves open for big plays, especially in the run game, right? We saw that firsthand with the Bills crushing them with the run last year. But and again, that's what Cleveland does well. You mentioned the question marks with Cleveland. I think Dallas has just as many question marks, right? They come into the season with Zeke Elliott as their lead back, who looks like, he can't get it done anymore. They end up signing Cook to the practice squad. But again, what has he done? Nothing over the last few years that he's been in the NFL. So there's no trust in the run game there for me. that means they're going to be passing it as much as they possibly can, which opens them up to mistakes and vulnerabilities beyond CeeDee Lamb, who's one of the most trusted guys in the NFL for good reason. But again, that Browns defense is going to stop them, I think. So I really like Cleveland in this game. I think, only being a 2.5-point favorite, they're playing at home, an underwhelming Dallas team coming in with more questions than even Cleveland has.
Yeah.
Give me Cleveland.
Right. And it's Cleveland's defense, right? I think they're arguably top 3 last year, maybe even in the conversation.
I think they were the top
defense.
1. Yeah.
I mean, statistically, sure. You need a little bit of offense to actually be the best defense, like we saw with the Jets. But Cleveland's in that conversation, like you said, Deshaun Watson just has to play average football, let the defense win the game, and I think it's Dallas is the ball's in Dallas's court. They're going to struggle, in my opinion. All right, next one here. The Raiders at the LA Chargers, Las Vegas +3 at the Chargers. Another divisional matchup, week 1. So there's, pressure right out the gate for these teams.
Well, I know you and I disagreed on the divisional standings for this divisional game here. But, I think the Chargers are the most overhyped team I've ever seen in the NFL, which is saying a lot, right? For the last few years, everybody's picked them to be in the AFC Championship game.
One of them.
Picked them to be there in the playoffs, right? And they just absolutely fall on their faces with a very good roster. Now they've had to overhaul the roster because they got a new coach. They have basically all new weapons around the quarterback who's good in Justin Herbert, right? But now we have to see him in this offense that is built differently, that is doing things differently for the first time in real action, at least. And now the defense is, good, but again, haven't proved it. And now all I'm seeing again around the NFL as people get their picks in this week is Chargers to be in the AFC Championship game or in the playoff. I'm like, what have they done to earn this respect? Absolutely nothing. It's kind of like the Jets situation too, right? If anything, you've proven not to trust the Chargers. And even though this game is at home for the Chargers, we know there's no such thing as home for the Chargers as long as they're not playing in San Diego.
There's a lot of Raiders fans there.
There's going to be a lot of Raiders fans. And I absolutely am picking the Raiders in this game to win. Whoa. They're getting 3 points, and I think they win the game because I like what they do on offense and trust more what they can do than the Chargers. I just think the Chargers are going to find a way to lose. Even though they now have a good coach, doesn't suddenly make them an elite team. And everybody's praising Harbaugh being coming in and, he's going to turn this chip around.
No, I hear what you're saying. I didn't pick the Chargers for the playoffs, right? But I think the interesting thing about John Harbaugh's approach is he's going to take pressure off Justin Herbert, right? So I think that's going to help Justin Herbert be a more effective quarterback.
Who's he throwing to? Palmer?
I mean, you'll find somebody. Quentin Johnson, Palmer.
Who can't catch the ball, yeah.
But again, when you have a good quarterback, though, you don't need crazy elite receivers, right? They find a way. And that's the expectation for Justin
Herbert. They're going to run a lot.
But they're going to run a lot, and they're going to try to be balanced. And that might take some time, but I just trust Justin Herbert. I mean, I feel like the Raiders, sure, I love their coach. They'll be energized, but again, on offense, who do you turn to? It's Devontae Adams or no one. I mean, I love the tight ends, Brock Bowers.
Yeah, they're bringing him.
Mayer. But I mean, it comes down to quarterback for me.
Well,
who's playing quarterback?
Gardner Minshew. Come on,
yeah.
Minshew mania. And I mean, I think that the other advantage here on defense, the X factor for me is Max Crosby, right? I mean, just one of the most. He's probably my favorite non-Bill defensive player.
Sure, he's good. You still have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack over there.
That's true, but again, Max Crosby has gotten it done every year. Those two guys disappeared and became nothing. Okay, did nothing for the last 2 years and still have the respect of the league somehow. So I mean, I have to see it done. And they just haven't done that. Whereas Max Crosby alone has gotten it done. And now I think he's got better pieces on that defense around him so that he can even be more effective in the NFL. So we'll see. But I like the Raiders to put the Chargers in their place.
All right. A good disagreement there. We'll definitely pay attention to that game. The Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts, another divisional matchup. Week 1, Houston -3 going into Indy. This is interesting to me because
Yeah.
this is the opportunity the Colts need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Richardson, there's a lot of hype around him and his athletic ability.
Mm-hmm.
Gets injured last year. This is your chance to host. A lot of people were picking the Houston to go to the Super Bowl, right? So
Mm-hmm.
host one of the better teams in the AFC, and if you can beat them, now you're the talk. Now you're
Yeah.
a game ahead of them. So I think it's a great opportunity for the Colts, and I think they're going to see it that way. So I'll let you pick first.
Well, I don't like. So this is a divisional game. We've said on the show a million times over the years. Divisional opponents play each other tough, and even with a -3 spread, I think that immediately gives me the advantage to the other team, right? So when two teams are competitive, and I think Indy is a good enough team to be in the conversation as competitive, I think that 3-point spread is questionable. So I'm going to take Indy with the points, but Houston to win the game. I think they do pull it off, but it's going to be by maybe 3 points or maybe 2 or 1, right? 20-21 or, 17-20, something like that. So either way, I'm taking the Colts with the points and Houston to win the game. But I agree with you that Houston, Indy could come out and capitalize on this opportunity.
Big
And
opportunity
beat
for
them.
them. Yeah. I'm going to pick the Texans. I just think they're too good. They're too balanced. They have an awesome running game, deep running back group, and deep receiver group. I mean, they're good on defense. There's just a lot to like about Houston. I think they find a way to win, but I would love that story about the Colts. All right, couple more here. I know it's 8:30. Broncos at the Seahawks. This could be interesting if Russell Wilson was in town, but he gone. Denver +6 at Seattle.
I'm taking Seattle here. I've been high on Seattle. Their weapons, their run game, their pass game. Whether you like Geno Smith or not, he can produce in this offense. And the Broncos, although I am super high on Bo Nix and excited for what he can do this year, and I believe guys like Courtland Sutton are overlooked on this team, and now they've got a good run. They're running back in Javonte Williams. The Broncos have some pieces, but they're playing in Seattle, and Seattle has so many dynamic weapons. I have questions about Seattle's defense, but I think this matchup pairs well for them. I think they're going to be consistently okay, and against the Broncos, that's going to be good, if not better. And I think Seattle wins comfortably in this game by 7 to 10 points. So give me Seattle.
Yeah, I agree. What a tough scenario for Bo Nix, though. You have to go to Seattle, play probably arguably the best secondary in the league, right? Devin Witherspoon. There's some great pieces there in Seattle. So it's going to be a really big challenge for him. I think you expect a lot of the Sean Payton type plays, underneath throws, chip away. But I like Seattle, on both sides of the ball. I think they can run the ball with Kenny Walker. It's a lot of, they can get the ball to their receivers. So I think Seattle wins this one comfortably. All right, 3 more. Washington Commanders at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Washington +3.5 at Tampa.
Yeah, this is funny because, again, week 1, Washington to me is a rising team that's going to be better than people think with Jaden Daniels at quarterback, but they still have a lot of holes. Tampa to me is the opposite. They rose last year to the top of a bad division, and now people have them as a favorite maybe or to make the playoffs. I think they come back down to reality a little bit, and this matchup just happens to be favorable for them. So I'm taking I'm taking Tampa, with -3.5. I just think, they have the experience that's going to pay off in this game. Washington will show flashes of what they can be during the season and be more competitive, but give me Tampa.
Yeah, I like Tampa at home too. Jaden Daniels just figuring things out. They trade away Jahan Dotson for some reason, but
Yeah.
I mean,
in division nonetheless.
There's still Terry McLaurin there. There's Brian Robinson. Still a lot to like for the Commanders. Just the rookie quarterback. I just think Tampa is going to be too hard to overcome week 1. All right, LA Rams at the Detroit Lions, Sunday Night Football. Rams +4.5 at Detroit. Matt Stafford returning to Detroit again.
Yeah. Yes. However, this time he's returning to Detroit without the likes of Aaron Donald, the best player in football last year, and nominated by the players, I should say, and without their leading leader on defense. So their defense in LA, although I like their offense, obviously Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, I think is primed for a bigger year and a comeback year. And I trust Stafford to be the guy who can be consistent enough to be good. The Lions are one of the best teams in football, period. Offensively, defensively. And the Rams left themselves vulnerable for some reason.
Right.
So unless we're going to see a miracle by the Rams, and this would be, to me, one of the most impressive wins if the Rams are able to beat the Lions at home, the Lions being home. I just think the Lions dominate this game. I'm taking them -4.5. I think they win by 10 or more, just solely on the power of their offense and the playmaking ability of their defense, even against a good offense.
Yeah, it's a different storyline if Darren Donald's in there. But Detroit Lions, they're probably with Aaron Donald out, they're probably the most difficult team to play because David Montgomery's going to pound it up the middle, open up opportunities for Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, that is so tough to defend.
Yeah.
And then obviously, there's a lot of, Goff can make a couple nice throws here and there, move the football. I like Detroit to control this game throughout and like you said, win by 10 or more.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that game, I just want to make one more comment. The coaching staff, there's no doubt Sean McVay gets a lot of hype for good reason. He's one of the best head coaches in the NFL, but the Lions staff all around is probably, to me, the best coaching staff in the NFL. Both of those, the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator, could have been head coaches this year, right? The head coach is proven himself now. I just think all around, and what are the Bills? We're a Bills podcast. We're Bills fans. You ask the Bills coaches who's the toughest team to game plan for. It's the Detroit Lions that they say, right? Both on offense and defense. We made our picks, and I actually had the Lions beating the Bills as one of my losses for the Bills this year. But we'll see come that week. And that was one of my points, that this coaching staff is just that good. So even from a coaching perspective, I think overall the Lions have the advantage, despite McVay being obviously, one of the better coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, we'll see if he can make magic happen. But I mean, Detroit is balanced. I like balanced teams.
Absolutely.
All right. Two more balanced teams here. The New York Jets at the San Francisco 49ers, Monday Night Football. Jets +4.5 at San Francisco. What do you think here? Jets can stay in this one, or what do you think?
You know what I think. Why are you asking me that question? Just so I get riled up? Huh? The Jets are the most overrated team in sports history. Okay? They've done literally nothing. They have literally the longest playoff drought in sports. And people are saying now, they're suddenly going to be competitors because they got a 48-year-old quarterback who's half dead and a team that is built around their defense, which is good and hasn't proven anything? No, they still suck. And this is going to be a wake-up call for them. They're playing the 49ers, one of the most well-built teams in the NFL. They're going to come out and punch this Jets team in the face. I hope Aaron Rodgers survives, but it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't. So give me San Francisco -4.5. I think they win by 10, even with a good Jets defense.
Yeah, I'm a little higher on the Jets than you. I'm not all the doom. But really, like, if you look at last year, I mean, they're winning games with defense alone. Zero offense.
Yes.
Absolutely zero. I think with Aaron Rodgers, just manage the game. That's all you got to do. Make a couple nice throws here and there. The Jets are sneaky good if that happens, right? But I just think going to San Francisco, it's a long trip for them. San Francisco, coming off the, kind of embarrassing Super Bowl loss. It was just so close. It was just tough. So I think there's little motivation there. I like San Francisco at home. I think they win by 10. But I think the Jets are still in that conversation to be a good team this year. But we'll see how it plays out.
The downfall starts week 1.
I mean, last year we were saying they were good, and it did actually happen. Downfall started in 4 plays. So anyway, Thanks everybody. We want to watch the game too. So thanks for tuning in. You can see us here every Thursday getting you ready for Sunday. We will talk about every single Bills matchup, as well as all the other picks.
Tune in for my pick 6 as well, right? So every week, every year, I make my picks. Every week, I give you 6 of my best bets for the week against the spread and rank them 1 to 6. I've been very good over the years, so make sure, like 70%, 68%, my numbers are there. So follow me. Be sure to tune in for that. We're going to post that shortly and every week for you during the season as well.
Yeah, definitely good. I've made money off him for sure. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Enjoy the game.
Go Bills.